Former middleweight champion Robert Whittaker has unfortunately been forced out of his upcoming UFC 275 bout against Marvin Vettori through injury. The pair currently occupy number 1 and number 2 in the rankings respectively, so the Kiwi's news comes as a disappointment. A replacement opponent for Vettori is yet to be announced. Today, we're discussing why Whittaker is out of the fight, plus some other UFC bits and pieces. Stay with us. First up, what has Robert Whittaker been up to recently? As you probably know, Whittaker has only been beaten twice in the past 8 years, both times by the same man. Current champion, Israel Adesanya, going 12-2 at that time. In his first title fight against Adesanya, the Nigerian Kiwi dethroned him after knocking him out via punches in the second round, and strung together 3 consecutive wins to propel himself back into title contention, beating Darren Till, Jared Cannonier, and Calvin Gastelum, all via unanimous decision. He took on Adesanya for the second time at UFC 271 back in February, and was this time on the receiving end of a unanimous decision, although some people had suggested after the fight that Whittaker had potentially done enough to get the W. However, as we all know, if you don't win clearly when fighting the champion, it is likely the current incumbent will get the nod when it goes to the judges' scorecards, which is just how it tends to go in MMA. But after calling out Marvin Vettori on Ariel Helwani's MMA Hour podcast back in March, Whittaker got his wish, as the matchmakers agreed this was the next fight to make it in the division. Whittaker had told Helwani the fight made sense as he is the closest fighter to him who he hasn't fought yet. We'll be disappointed that the fight he wanted most is now off. What have you thought of Whittaker's recent form? Next, let's jump in. What do we know about Whittaker's injury? Well, UFC fans were shocked to learn that this past week that Robert Whittaker had been forced out of the upcoming UFC 275 event in Singapore due to injury. But Whittaker was quick to reassure fans that he will be back better than ever. When he posted on Twitter, "Sorry to say guys, due to an injury I took early in the camp, I'm not able to compete in June. I did everything I could to get it right, but it's not healing in time. All this means is that I'll be back in the octagon a couple months later and I'll be better than ever." Of course, this is sad news for Whittaker, who is desperate for another shot at Adesanya following February's defeat, but he has promised to be back to his best soon enough. And as for Vettori, he has suggested a couple of names who might be willing to jump in against him. He threw down the gauntlet to Smesh brothers Darren Till and Khamzat Chimaev, suggesting one of them should step up and face the Italian brawler. Vettori even went as far as to say he would be willing to fight Till in his hometown of Liverpool, where it has been suggested the UFC are targeting for a card later this year. Vettori said, "It feels like I'm living in a deja vu. Nobody wants to dance with me again. Come on, somebody. Till, where are you at? Khamzat, where are you at? Come on, Smash boys, let's go. I'll take you both together. Let's go." Big words. So who else could Vettori be taking on next? Let's see. Obviously, Vettori clearly has his sights firmly set on either one of the UFC's newest bromance, Darren Till or Khamzat Chimaev, recently calling out the pair, suggesting he'd be willing to fight them back to back. But there seems there are more than a few options open to the Italian, and quick to call out the number 3 ranked fighter was Brazilian Paulo Costa, who actually fought Vettori back in October. The pair went the distance, with Marvin bagging the unanimous decision, and following Whittaker's withdrawal, he suggested Vettori should grant him an instant rematch. However, Marvin seemed less than enthusiastic about the prospect of fighting Costa again, who, after a sensational start to his MMA career, has now lost his past 2 fights in a row. And Costa, who called Vettori a moron when challenging him, was told to go away by Vettori, but in a much ruder way. He finished by telling the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt that he has to again claim his spot, as he is now behind him. Dana White has even declared in the past that Costa needs to look into the possibility of moving up to light heavyweight, but the Brazilian seems set on staying and fighting for middleweight gold. As for Vettori, the UFC still has a couple of months to find him a willing opponent, but we think the Till fight makes perfect sense. What do you guys think of this one? Let us know below. More middleweight news now. Sean Strickland has been on. Strickland, who is a pretty divisive figure in the world of MMA, has again been up to his old tricks, this time targeting trainers, Jim West and Pat Barry, whom he is accused of the pretty serious crime of grooming. The pair, who are currently dating their students, Aspen Ladd and Rose Namajunas, respectively, have come in for criticism from Strickland due to the fact the female fighters were actually children when they started training with their current coaches. And Strickland even went on further by suggesting that both West and Barry were the Weinstein of MMA, in reference to the disgraced movie producer Harvey Weinstein, who is currently serving a long jail sentence for sexual abuse. His comments are sure to anger the coaches, whom Strickland also compared to late singer and alleged child abuser Michael Jackson, while suggesting that Aspen Ladd was suffering from Stockholm Syndrome, in which an abused or imprisoned person comes to love and feel sympathy for their abuser. He also suggested that Netflix were contacting Ladd and Namajunas for a documentary, the possible joke being that the fighters' situations are so controversial that they could, in fact, warrant their own documentary investigations. Both fighters are yet to respond, and probably won't, as responding to idiots like Strickland will only serve to encourage them. Ladd also claimed that she wants to fight women's legend Miesha Tate, after she recently criticized her corner team in her last fight. What do you make of Strickland's comments? Next up, news of Strickland's upcoming fight and what it could mean for the top of the division. Strickland, who beat Jack Hermanson last time out, will next be out against Israel Adesanya, longtime nemesis, Alex Pereira. The former Glory Kickboxing World Champion, Pereira is the only man to beat Adesanya on 2 separate occasions, both times in the Glory organization. This fight will be an interesting one, as Pereira is expected expected to do big things in the UFC's middleweight division, and many people will be hoping he can put a stop to the hype train surrounding the self-confessed former neo-Nazi Strickland. And former heavyweight contender Brendan Schaub, who now co-hosts a pretty popular podcast, The Fighter and the Kid, has recently spoken out about what a win for Pereira over Strickland could mean, given the implications of his 2 previous wins over Adesanya. He said there's not a lot going on there. That's why they're building up that guy, Pereira, who beats him, Adesanya, and glory. He's fighting Sean Strickland, which is a tough fight for him, but if he gets past that, he still would have to get past a Robert Whittaker, or a Marvin Vettori, or some of these monsters that are 1 through 5. Just because you beat Strickland doesn't mean you just catapult to the title shot. I don't think it works like that. Would you guys like to see Pereira take on Adesanya again in the MMA octagon? Let us know below. And finally, news of the Smesh brothers winding up another UFC middleweight. As we know, Darren Till and Khamzat Chimaev have recently started up one of the most unusual friendships in MMA. After Till traveled to Sweden to train with the welterweight destroyer, and the pair, who were surely just trolling, appeared to not be able to name a fellow UFC fighter and middleweight contender after meeting him backstage recently. Joaquin Buckley, owner of possibly the best ever knockout after a spectacular spinning back kick KO a couple of years back, approached the pair backstage at UFC 273 to suggest a fight between one or the other. And whilst he had appeared to agree on a potential fight with Till, Chimaev then asked, "Who's that guy?" Till then claimed to not know who he was, which didn't seem to impress Buckley one bit. He informed the pair he was down to scrap right now, but would prefer to get paid for it. The interaction was pretty disrespectful, to be honest, and Chimaev went on to stoke the fires even further by calling Buckley a name usually reserved for female dogs. What did you make of the interaction between these three? Let us know below. As always, thanks for dropping by today, and remember to join us next time for some more fun and games. Also, why not do us a favor by liking and sharing today's video, as well as subscribing to our channel so you don't miss out on our upcoming content. Bye guys!